Today's meeting of real property environmental concerns. We had our last meeting on July 22nd, and then we also had the last chance meeting on August 12th. So I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from the July meeting, please. Supervisor McDevitt, second by Supervisor Hogan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed, abstained? Thank you, that passes. And do we need a motion to approve the minutes of the... Did we have minutes sent out?
Yeah. Oh, it's this one. Yes!
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last chance meeting, please? Supervisor Loeb, seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, that carries. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Lexi.
All right, this isn't on the agenda, but I just wanted to give a quick update from the last chance meeting. I have reached out to all three of them as well. The one lady in Warrensburg, she went home immediately and started, she said, packing things up in her house to put things in storage so that she could get her property listed for sale. She really took the suggestion and wants to list the property. The other one in Queensbury, Laura Carroll, she has a meeting with her attorney on Wednesday to discuss what to do and where to go from here. And then Mr. Zabo, also in Queensbury, reached out to me, and we had the treasurer's office do an installment agreement, or prep one anyways, so that he could see an estimate of what it would be, and he's going to be taking that to his attorneys. However, he hasn't been in yet to pick it up. So I did reach out to him again this morning, but only got a voicemail. So I just thought I'd give you guys an update on those properties. Okay.
Thank you.
So, first on the agenda is under discussion and review. There is a letter in your packet from National Grid seeking interest in acquiring the Queensbury property on Burnt Hills Drive, parcel 308.8-1-56. We've had quite a few discussions on this at past committee meetings. I went back on Friday and reviewed some of the videos to find out when. I know last October there was a lengthy one, and there might have been one in August, but I didn't get to get through that video. But so there is a value on the property of $700, but in the past we had talked with National Grid about acquiring the property from us, but they had to do some review. We had given them our, oh my gosh, this went out of my head. Right, whatever we have done for the auction. How did that go out of my head? There you go, the abstract. We had given them the abstract of title that we had through the county attorney's office for their review. They went out and did some site inspections, and they finally have gotten back to us. This started, I think it was about this time last year that we started reviewing this with them, or reaching out to them to see if they were interested. So they are interested in acquiring the property from us. They did send us the letter, so it would be a matter of how the committee wants to move it forward.
So the benefit to us would be that this property, which has high tension power lines on it, would go to someone who would be responsible for that land and would then start paying taxes again on that land. So this has been batted around by National Grid for a very long time, and I know Supervisor Dickinson, when he was chair last year, supported us conveying this land back to National Grid, and they are finally willing to take it. So I would entertain a motion to sell this to National Grid for $10. Supervisor Loeb. On the motion, thank you. Supervisor McDevitt.
And Supervisor Stroud, what's his thoughts?
I'm curious, when they made the subdivision, this was obviously set aside. And I'm just wondering, did National Grid already have an active participation in this piece of property, and that they might be using it for a utility right away?
Go ahead, Lexi.
Right, so there was, and I had brought that to our meeting, I think last summer and last fall, a map. I know in the October meeting I passed around a copy. I probably should have brought it again. of the subdivision, and this was a piece of land that the intention, when it went through subdivision approval, was to deed this property to National Grid. That never happened. So the builder built out the subdivision and then walked away, and this was a piece of property that was left. And so, I mean, they're the only ones that really would have a use for this, because it is the high tension lines, and the line continues in both east-west directions and goes forever. So it's just this one was never deeded to them. They do have the right-of-way over it. I mean, they don't really need title to it, but it would really be the best interest, because then they would at least be paying taxes on it.
And Lexi, who's going to pay the closing costs?
National Grid is willing to pay the closing costs as well.
Okay, well, that seems only right.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that carries. Okay. Great. All right, next one.
Yep. All right, so the next one is the town of Queensberry. The Mullins property on Bay Road. So we had put this out for some asbestos testing. I did include, at least to the committee, a copy of an email that I received from Tina Prouty, who was the project manager. They did not have a chance to get the report together. They were hoping, they're just overbooked or backlogged on getting their reports out. So I know some of you may have read it. I could read it to you, at least just so it's in. The majority of the roofing materials came back as containing asbestos. A few of the materials came back as trace, and a couple as non-ACM, which is the ACM stands for asbestos containing material. With the layering of the roofing systems, however, the majority, if not all, of the roofing would need to be considered as ACM or ACM contaminated materials. There were a decent amount of seam sealants and caulks that came back as ACM on the exterior and interior of the building. This building has had additions put on, so there's windows that were maybe outside windows at one time that are now on the inside, so that's what they're talking about. The majority of the window glazings came back as trace. However, there are also glazings that came back as containing asbestos, as well as a few that came back as non-ACM. With the sporadic placement of the ACM/non-ACM/trace materials, as well as the windows and glazings being damaged, we would have to treat it as an incidental and try and see if we could determine a delineation of the affected areas. The bay doors, the braided insulation seams came back as ACM. There was also a pile of rolled roofing that came back as ACM. Somebody, I'm assuming when they were trying to repair the roof, they had brought in rolls of the tar paper and just piled it in there, so that's what she was talking about in there. There was probably about 10 rolls maybe in a pile. The bulk debris sampling taken of the roofing from the roof collapse in various material distribution throughout the interior came back as ACM. The gypsum boards, gaskets, one came back as trace, joint compounds, insulations, cloth, wire jackets, the office stair associated linoleum, and other miscellaneous materials came back as non-ACM. Given this information and with the inaccessible areas from the second floor, because the roof had collapsed down into the second floor, which then collapsed down into the first floor on the front right-hand corner of the building, required to be treated as ACM contaminating. It will be a great likelihood that the entire building, as well as some surrounding grounds, will be required to be considered as ACM incidental. However, before a proper delineation can be determined, another site visit and assessment would be required. So I know that they are working right now on putting together an actual report for me, so I can share that with the committee when I get that report, but this is all I really have on this right now.
Supervisor Stroud and then McDevitt.
I know that dealing with the Ridge Road Car Care, the Department of Labor was also interested, and I guess it made a difference in how you made the cleanup between what they call friable and non-friable. Friable, from what I understand, is a substance that has asbestos and can be volatile in the sense that it can be airborne or easily airborne, versus embedded in the substance and not friable, not likely to be airborne. So to them, that made a difference in how it got cleaned up. The non-friable is easier to clean up than what they say is the friable, because the friable obviously may allow some exposure. So I didn't see that discussion take place here. So,
maybe in the report, it'll be delineated there, but right now, that was all I got, was just kind of a brief, quick summary from Tina. So I'm hoping when the report comes out that there'll be more extensive information.
And it sounded too, is what they said, that they need to go back on site and make a more thorough determination.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming they're going to do that, right?
I'm a little frustrated by that because they were already at the site. I thought that's what they were doing.
I did as well. They were at the site numerous days, so I'm trying to think, Thursday, Friday, and I think Monday were the 3 days that they were there back when they were there. So
they're saying that another site visit and assessment would be required.
yeah, I'm going to have to talk to her further about that to find out exactly what else they need to do, why they would need a return site visit.
Okay, all right.
I would have thought in the time that they were there, that they would have gathered everything they needed, but I don't know, maybe they overlooked something.
All right, so you'll talk to them, Lexi, and we'll find out.
I will.
Thank you.
Supervisor McDivitt?
Yes, that was one of my questions. When will the next site visit occur? Possibly the word friable and non-friable can come up in your discussion with them. Do they have any responsibility as far as kind of those terms that John used? Or
I
whether...
made a note.
Okay, thank you.
So I will talk to her about the friable and non-friable.
Great. And do they have the ability to make that kind of a determination and a judgment, these folks?
I would think they would.
Okay. And then maybe lastly, as we go through this process, the identification of who is responsible for, once we get to a point where we determine, the environmental issues, what legally is then the next step? I mean, whose responsibility is it to tear the facility down? I mean, who does the bill go to? And what are the steps that, again, we're at this point now, we get an environmental study. What actually happens then? Where does the legal process move to?
So currently, the county does not own the property. We only have temporary incidents of ownership. There's a couple ways it could be handled. If the town of Queensbury decided to move forward with condemnation, they could condemn it, but if they condemn it, then they would become responsible for tearing the building down. We don't know what the cost of that is going to be, especially with quite a bit of contamination. So I think from there, it depends on which way we want to go. When talking with DEC, they didn't seem super concerned with the contamination levels that were found in the ground. So there is always the avenue of tearing it down and encapsulating it with pavement and making it a parking lot like Supervisor Strau had discussed with me, and I think he may have mentioned it here as well at some committee meetings. So if that was the case and it was encapsulated and not disturb the ground end of it, would be okay that way. But again, you still get into the cost of tearing the building down. If the county decides that they want to move forward with foreclosing on it, and we did that, then it would become our responsibility for, the cleanup of the property and then encapsulating the ground with pavement. But I'm sure needs to be further discussion about that down the road.
I guess maybe throw a question at you and John. I mean, does Queensbury have the discretion whether to condemn or not to condemn the property?
John can probably answer more. I know that they have looked a little bit into it, but the sign that's on the building is a little misleading because it's not condemned currently. It's there more for safety purposes. I think when we discussed this before, Dave Hatton had said that they did not go forward with doing any condemnation of the building.
Well, I you know, I would like to think that, you know, since it's going to be a resource attached to the Warren County Bikeway, and it could be a parking area, and everyone has come forward and said that's a perfect spot for a parking area for that bikeway. You know, you would think that there might be some grant money. You would like to think that there would be some grant money, but especially if you have a public purpose for it. So, I mean, if the public purpose is going to be something that everybody supports, you know, an amendment to the parking for the use of the bikeway.
It should be a community effort, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it would be a community effort, and I think that DEC I would like to think they would find some grant money for us. You know.
Or Mike has you have a fund, don't you, Mike?
Well, we have a testing fund.
Oh, okay.
I guess we'd have to get an opinion from the county attorney's office as to whether or not we should use that money for demolition purposes. I know that when they talked about using some of that money to up to the old jail, it was determined that we could not use that money for that. So,
Okay, thank you. So stay tuned.
Sorry, Chairman Conover.
Yeah, I mean, for our decision-making purposes, at least mine, knowing what the problem is, that's great. But then I'm going to want to know what that equals in terms of what's going to be the cost of addressing the issues. And if the consultants, I would hope it would be part of what they would provide for our decision-making going forward, and if, at least to the point on the demolition, where they could contact various construction companies that are in this business, that understand prevailing wage rates, to get some estimates and some range relative to the demolition of a building contaminated, as our consultants are indicating is contaminated, so that we know, you know, what the challenge, what the financial challenge is in front of us, and then we can make decisions at that time. So I would hope that they're going to provide this information, and if they're not, then I think that we should ask them to provide this information, so that we're not back here a month from now saying, well, here are the issues environmentally, and, well, what's it going to cost? Well, I don't know.
We need to know what we're looking at so that we can talk to our partners about how we're going to pay for all of this.
Absolutely.
So, Lexi, what about the cost estimate for...
We did have, when we put a proposal out to them, they did give us figures for one going in and doing the testing, and a separate figure to give us that estimate of cost. So that was something that I did bring to committee back when we brought this, and I don't remember the exact date, but they could put together the cost estimate for us of, you know, what they felt it was going to cost, if I'm remembering correctly, but it was at a price to us for them to put that together for us.
Chairman?
Well, if you have this preliminary report, I'm sure perhaps a department that deals with this, like our highway department, could put that in the hands of contractors that do this kind of work to get some general ballparks of what they think the cost would be relative to this. But if the cost is not all that great for the consultant to do that as well, because that's what the consultant's going to do.
Yes.
Unless they're in the demolition business themselves, they're going to be contacting other, so we would have them handle it. But rather than that, Madam Chairman, I would hope that at the staff level we could work our way through this, so at the next meeting we could have all of this in front of us, so that we could move forward.
Yeah. Supervisor Garrity?
My question is, to the committee and everybody, what's the right thing to do?
I'm sorry?
What's the right thing to do? I mean, we're sitting here with a building that we know is contaminated, probably not friable asbestos based on the report, unless there's a lot of pipe insulation. So it's probably not friable. Why not get a like Ron Chairman said? They should be able to give you a price and get a contractor in there within 2 weeks' time to give you a cost estimate, bring it back. And what are we going to do with the cost anyways? Are we going to put it back onto the property and then potentially work with the town of Queensbury to do the bike thing? So we got to eat the cost of doing environmentally what is the right thing to do rather than wasting more time talking. I mean, this should have been settled as far as I'm concerned. If they've done the drilling of the holes and they've done the phase 1 testing and they say the ground is okay, tear the building down. Absorb the cost. I'm sure the taxpayers of the county would be much happier, and there is a cost, I understand that, but if environmentally it's the right thing to do, we've wasted a lot of time with this going back and forth and back and forth.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is have we looked into what we could do to go up with, this is the second major building this family has ruined in our county. All right, the other one was on Cooper Street. All right, I don't want to say ruined, but has contaminated the area. So we took down that one on Cooper Street, or who did. I want to know what are our legal ramifications, to go against the estate, because I know Mr. Mueller is, no longer with us here. So, what have we looked at that to help with the cost? And also, too, I believe in the committee meeting it was brought up that we were concerned about the stability of the building and how far the intent we could test, because we weren't sure. Did any of that come back of how the building stability is?
They weren't looking at that. They were just there to test for asbestos and lead. So, but I mean, I've been in the building, and there is quite a few locations where the roof has come in. There's definitely areas that are not stable, and then there's areas that are. But we didn't have that tested.
To move us forward, I'm thinking that I'd like to have a resolution to approve obtaining the report about the estimate of the cost to do the demolition, and it's going to cost some money, but we don't have that right in front of us. So I think what I would suggest is a resolution moving this to finance, and by the time we get to finance, we'll have a number in front of us. Supervisor Shaw.
As a suggestion, nobody can give you a proposal until we have the report. So the report needs to come online, and then we could cast requests for proposals for demolishing this building, and here is the report. So you're going to have to meet DOL standards in taking care of this building. How much? So then we could get some financial proposals.
You think we can go right out for a bid once we have this report? We don't...
Not bids. I'm talking proposals, and there is a big difference. So we would cast out there for proposals, and maybe get 2 or 3.
For the cost of demolition?
Yes.
We do already have something, I believe, from ATL. It's just we didn't move forward with having them do that. We wanted to get the report first, and then see what the report showed before they came and gave us a cost to demo.
I'm not sure
but then we will
can give you an idea of the cost of demolishing the building until you know what you're dealing with.
Right. That's
but this way we'll have a request for proposals out there for anyone, including ATL, once this report comes back.
So if your linear logic is that when we get the report back, that we go out for RFPs for demolishing the building site in accord with New York State Department of Labor and DEC standards and so forth.
So is that a motion to put out the RFP once we have the report?
It is. Is it a little too early for that, or no?
How soon do you think we're going to have this report? Before the next committee meeting or not?
Oh, definitely. I really thought they were going to have it to me by Friday, is what they were hoping.
Mike is going to look
but they're
into,
short
too,
staffed.
to see if there's funding from the county on that behalf. I mean, I'm certainly willing to call DEC once I have the facts in front of me, to call and see, since this is going to be for a legitimate public purpose, if there is any grant money out there for this, or I can put Chase and Industry companies on that.
Okay, so
And certainly support going in that direction.
do we need a motion for sending out an RFP, or can we just do that? Can staff just do that?
We can do it. We've certainly asked committees before whether or not they wanted an RFP.
Okay, so let's have a motion, and then we can take further discussion to send out the RFP, a request for proposals.
And the motion is,
That would be sent out once we have this report from ATL.
we'll put it on an RFP for...
For bids for demolition, yes, proposals. Okay, thank you. Seconded by Supervisor McDevitt, and then Chairman?
Just the question of whether the environmental fund can be used on a building that's falling down, that's contaminated, needs to be asked and answered.
Okay,
We've gone to this point after so many months, and apparently we haven't answered that question. It's not simply the demolition of a building, and can the fund be used for that? The question is, what do you do if the building's falling down, and as a result of falling down, the debris is mixed in with the contamination? We need to ask that question and answer it, so that then we
Right.
know whether the environmental fund is an available source of funding or not.
thank you. I will officially make that request to the county attorney's office. Got that, Bob?
Got it.
Okay. All right, so we have that motion on the table. Any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Good. Hopefully we're moving forward. Still.
Okay.
This is a good news story. Chester.
So next on the agenda is an update on the Chestertown property where Thermo Homes was at 10 Pine Street. So I have been communicating with Patrick Holloway from the New York Environmental Protection and Spill Compensation Fund. He is the manager of that fund with New York State, and he has prepared an agreement. We had looked into this in the spring through DEC, except DEC was going to charge us $10,000 to do this agreement, and we weren't really going to get any clarity at the end of the agreement. So through Patrick Holloway's office, they have prepared an agreement and sent it to us, and they are willing to only charge us $2,500 to go in and to remove both of the tanks up in the town of Chester at this property, and they would release us from any liability on the property, including our successor, which the town of Chester has recommended that they are not recommended, but asked to acquire this property once we move forward on it. If we do go through with the foreclosure, they would like to acquire this property from us, so they would also not hold them liable as well. We do have an agreement. However, the county attorney didn't get the opportunity to be able to review the agreement. Robert has had the chance to take a look at it. Claudia has also reviewed it. So I did come up with a couple of resolutions that I would like to present for this agreement, and contingent upon the review of the county attorney, but I would still like to move forward and have her just review it before the board meeting. So the first one would be to authorize the chairman of the board to execute an agreement with New York Environmental Protection and Spill Compensation Fund for Town of Chester Parcel 104.10-4-5 which is the cleanup and tank removal for a dollar amount of $2,500.
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Simpson, and a second by Supervisor McDevitt. And I did review the agreement. I think it's great for the county. It does say they will not hold us liable into the future. They recognize that we are not the party who was responsible, and it's only asking for the $2,500 after we take title to the property. It does also indicate our intention to convey the property to Chester, to the town of Chester. So if you have any concerns about that, we should probably vet that now. Otherwise, if there's no further discussion, Supervisor McGowan.
Just a little confused. I like the fact that, you know, all the sign-offs and we're not holding responsibility. So the county is going to spend $2,500 to have the tanks removed, turn around and let Chester acquire the property for nothing. Is that what I'm understanding?
No.
Well, go ahead.
We have a local resolution that if we foreclose on a property through a tax foreclosure and there is a town that is interested, they may acquire, and they could either acquire it for the outstanding taxes or a third of the value, whichever is less. So the town of Chester would opt for a third of the value, and so that's what they would be acquiring it from us for.
And how much would that be?
I don't have those figures in front of me right now. I have to go back and look.
That's our standard policy, though, if a municipality wants to obtain the property that the county is acquired through foreclosure.
Well, and I don't have a problem with that.
$22,500.
How much?
It's $22,500, it's right on the partial sheet. That's what the value is.
So they pay a third of $22,000.
Is that what they owe?
No.
No.
That's the assessed value. You asked what the assessed value was, $22,000.
Oh, no, they're going to be buying it, what, a third of that, right?
Correct. So about
So that would
approximately
cover our cost of
7,500.
removing the tanks.
Definitely.
Then we'd have to write off the rest, right?
Third of
I was just, I don't know, it just didn't make sense to think...
$7,500, so we would only be paying them $2,500, we would be charging the town $7,500, so it would be $5,000 coming in.
Okay. Thank you, I was just, you know, it just didn't seem why we paying for it and giving them the land, why
We
wouldn't
would
they
just be giving it.
buy it? But, all right, thank you, I didn't know that.
Okay. Supervisor Garrity, did you have a comment? Or are you just being peanut gallery? Okay.
I want to give it a shot.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Lexi, okay, with respect to that, go
So
ahead.
there's one more resolution with respect to the same matter, and it would be to appropriate the funds from A893, the Reserve Environmental Testing Fund, to A1355-470, which is the Real Property Tax Services contract budget. And this would be to pay the New York Environmental Protection and Spill Compensation Fund, and the payment shall be made payable to the Comptroller, State of New York, with oil spill fund in the memo line of the check.
Motion by Supervisor Hogan, seconded by Supervisor Stroud. Yes, Supervisor?
It doesn't get paid until after the tanks are out of the ground, correct?
Correct. We have 60 days after that to pay them.
Okay, any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. And one more on real property, just to clear up our records, because staff indicated that we still have a carryover about deleting the outstanding taxes on the 4 parcels in Queensbury that EDC wanted to acquire, and we are not taking action on that, so we can remove that from our pending items. Okay, anything further on real property, Lexi?
No.
Okay. Under environmental concerns, we have a continuation of our discussion on the Clean Lakes collaboration. Just as a reminder, this was working with the other communities that have lakes that are impacted by the harmful algal blooms state initiative. So what it is what we have been asked to do is to sign on to a resolution of support with the other communities, it's mostly counties, that have the lakes that are part of the state program, and we would be working with them on an advocacy effort to work towards additional efforts and maybe regulation, maybe changing some of the legislation about creation of water protection districts so that it would be easier to fight the harmful algal blooms problem. Any questions? Direct them to Supervisor Simpson. No, I'm just kidding. I did talk to the Chautauqua County legislative person who was on this initiative, and it sounds like a great, they're still getting their, legs under them, but I think that it's something that we should support. I didn't see any downfall to it. Yes, Supervisor Simpson.
I did ask former Supervisor Fred Monroe, who had handed me that information, if he could come here and speak, but I believe he could be on a trip in Scotland right now.
Oh.
So he obviously is not here, but because I was going to ask him to speak to it if, because he's been very involved with it.
Is he supporting that initiative?
He is.
Okay. Supervisor Stroud.
Is there a model resolution or anything?
There is a resolution that was in our packet from last month. So that's what I was hoping that we would pass today.
Make copies of that resolution, or do you?
I have mine from last month. I can go over it quickly, or do you want to have it in front of you before we pass something? Sure. Okay. It says Clean Lakes Collaboration dedicated to protecting New York State's most vital and threatened asset. I'm not going to read every whereas clause, but it says, whereas the unparalleled array of freshwater lakes and watersheds of New York State constitutes the state's most valuable asset for drinking water, recreation, tourism, agriculture, flood control, fishing, and community health, as well as essential habitat for plant and animal life. There's some whereases about economic value of freshwaters, growing scientific documentation about mounting threats and impacts on the state's freshwater lakes and watersheds. Sources of these threats and impacts commonly include inadequate wastewater and stormwater control, introduction and spread of aquatic and terrestrial invasive species, excessive use of road salt, and climate change. Also, these sources are contributing to measurable declines in the quality of New York's freshwater resources. The declines in water quality are evidenced by escalating number and frequency of freshwater lakes, including public drinking water supplies experiencing harmful algal blooms with substantial economic, environmental, public health, and community costs. And whereas successful programs for stopping and reversing water quality declines are being developed and implemented across the state. Whereas the value of accelerating coordinated understanding of effective programs for reducing water quality declines can ensure their growing application statewide. There is growing interest and support for active collaboration. Now, therefore, it is agreed that the undersigned parties representing diverse sectors and regions of New York State are establishing the Clean Waters Collaboration to advocate for protection and/or restoration of their waters. This collaboration is dedicated to solving the problems threatening water quality, with particular emphasis on improving wastewater and stormwater controls, stopping the introduction and spread of aquatic and terrestrial invasive species, reducing the excessive road salt use. You guys want me to keep going? There's only a few more. Increasing resilience to climate change, and effective solutions to identified problems threatening water quality will be generated by coordinated exchange of information and initiatives among and beyond the waters represented in this MOU. Best available science, technology, and analytics will be applied. Natural watershed boundaries will frame the execution of measures to be implemented to ensure maximum effectiveness in protecting and restoring waters of the Clean Lakes Collaboration. We will work with New York State for the establishment of watershed protection districts. Notably, we already have the Lake George Park Commission. but there's only one other of those in the entire state, I believe. Okay, sorry. The Watershed Protection District will serve as a funding district for the express purpose of accessing state funds and resources dedicated to supporting implementation of measures to solve specified water quality programs. We'll work with state officials. Implementation of funded measures will be monitored by best available technologies and practices, and that requisite to accessing state funding, a Watershed Protection District will commit to financial participation, the percentage of which will be determined by a watershed's funding capacity based on a range of financial metrics to be determined, and this MOU may be signed in counterparts.
So,
Hold on, Supervisor Merlino.
one question, it keeps saying water district. Does that mean just like Lake George Water District or the whole county?
For us, well,
It just,
For the other lakes.
It's like the floatable plows. That Lake Luzerne wasn't in their district, so we weren't able to get them. So, if this is the whole county or just a district?
this is specifically for Lake George,
That's what I want.
which has been designated one of the lakes in the harmful algal blooms program.
So it won't include Friends Lake?
It does not include Friends Lake. The harmful algal blooms program...
We actually have a bloom happening in Friends Lake? Okay.
I think that there would be opportunities...
It wasn't like Lake Luzerne's lake, so it should have been a countywide proposal instead of just a district. But
That's where I have the issue with it also, the fact that it's really, we pass these with good intentions, and really what we want is action for all the lakes in Warren County. Lake George is equally important, and it's just as important as every other lake, but it seems like we need to take a position that is encompassing all of Warren County, and hopefully everybody supports that. I think all of our bodies of water are important. Friends Lake, Moon Lake,
Brant Lake.
Scroon Lake, all. Some of them go across borders.
I mean, the addendum does say state enabling legislation would provide for the formation of watershed protection districts, membership and actions of which would resemble SAFE.
I think as the county representing Lake, one of the counties representing Lake George, we should be part of the collaboration of the other 11 lakes in the state program. I don't think that would preclude our other lakes or towns. I mean, Queensbury has a watershed protection district for Glen Lake. This would serve as an example and help hopefully drive education and initiatives that would help our other lakes. Yes, Supervisor Simpson.
I would suggest we should support this, but also have another resolution supporting all the bodies of water in Warren County that we're responsible for, including Lake Luzerne, to follow the same. And I don't know how we do that.
What if we put something in the resolution saying that we support watershed protection initiatives for all of our lakes? And, why not the Hudson River?
Thank you.
As one of our whereases and resolution paragraphs. Yes?
So I'm assuming that this resolution before us is part of the requirement for the Association of the Have Lakes that New York State has put together and attributed grant funding for, and that all the lakes, the 12 lakes, Lake George being one of the 12 identified in that HAB concept, that this is an MOU going forward to enable Lake George to get grant funding and so forth. All right, then I don't think we have much option. We have to support this. But to go along with what I'm hearing from Supervisor Simpson and Supervisor Molino is that this committee would also support requesting that New York State consider going beyond the 12 lakes in its future consideration in terms of doing what's right in regards to the watershed of other lakes in Warren County. And yes, and I would support that too. I mean, Glen Lake should be in there, Lake Luzerne should be in there, French Lake, Spoon Lake, you know, I would support that as well. But I almost think that has to be a separate resolution, but it can be made in accord with that. So it just comes forward with, does anybody want to work on that other resolution? They can probably just use this in form.
Okay. So we'll work on a second resolution separately. Okay. Do I have a motion to pass this resolution? Okay. Seconded by Supervisor Simpson. Any further discussion? Tammy, sorry to catch you a little off guard. Can you give us an update on where we are with the, well, let me take the vote on this, sorry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you, that passes. Can you give us an update on where we are with the
septic system replacement program from New York State?
Yes, for county-wide water bodies.
For county-wide water bodies, so that wasn't, we didn't in our list, we did not include just Lake, we included Lake Luzerne, we included Grant Lake of our group of, I think there were 8 water bodies that we ended up with. Unfortunately, we're not really, I haven't reached out to Ken Kaczynski again with DEC for an update, and I have not, I just did that last week, I have not heard back from him. When I do, I will certainly relay that information to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, committee, for supporting that resolution for the HABs lakes. I think it will be important for our participation in that collaboration and accessing the state funding. I have just one more update on the Climate Smart Task Force. It looks like we will be having our first meeting in October. So I'll keep you up to date on what's happening and what our ideas and suggestions are coming out of that task force. Anything further to come before this committee? Supervisor McDivitt?
Just one quick observation. It seems like we're taking some concrete, specific action. We're getting tanks out of the ground in Chester. We're hopefully improving their community. We're doing the same thing in Queensbury. We're a structure that's built in 1940 that has been an eyesore, a polluted structure that really should go. So I think this committee can point to, I think, some tangible achievements to make, you know, the community just better. So.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we'll draft some language, we being myself, and maybe I'll get Supervisor Stroud to help me, on that second resolution regarding our county-wide water bodies and watersheds. And just keep in mind the thought about a county-wide septic inspection program. I think that would help all of our water bodies. And I have been contacted by a person at the Realtors Association, and they are going to come to the next meeting in September. No, they're coming in October, I'm sorry. They had a scheduling conflict. But they're going to talk about a survey they did with respect to short-term rentals and septic inspection program in the county. So I think that'll be really interesting and good to come through our committee. Anything further? Motion to adjourn? Supervisor Strauss, Simpson on the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Brought you, Patrick Holland.